Woo! Woo! We are live. You know what? I wanted to do a quick Brap rant. I haven't done a Brap rant in a couple weeks and felt like, what the hell? Let's do a Brap rant. There's a lot to talk about. So I want to talk about I'm going to talk about a couple topics here. Talk about media bias again. The whole ridiculous argument about media bias against the Xbox and stuff. Obviously, you guys know that I don't necessarily think that there is this mass conspiracy against Xbox. I'm sure developers do media sites, clickbait. Absolutely, that is something that indeed does happen from time to time. And look, it's part of the 24, whether you like it or not. Woo! It's part of the 24/7 use cycle. Just is what it is. No reason to get your panties in a bunch because of a title. I see people investing way too much time into clickbait titles. Oh, it's clickbait. Oh my God, what am I gonna do? It's clickbait. Oh, it's not fair. Oh, let me tell you something. If the biggest worry of my life today was the fact that IGN or GameSpot had a clickbait title, if that was my biggest concern, my biggest worry, goddamn, my life would be so fucking easy. But it's not. I have a mortgage, a job, 4 kids, a wife. I ain't got time for that shit. And anyway, that shit is so trivial, so inconsequential to anyone personally, or it doesn't impact anyone's enjoyment of whatever platform it is they game on. The problem is, gamers, as you guys know, are so attached to that piece of plastic. It's their identity. For crying out loud, it's fucking video games. And I see this all the time. And I don't know why this is. Someone needs to do some kind of research on this. A group of sociologists need to get together and identify what's going on here. Are people, a few sandwiches short of a picnic? Is there some kind of emotional void that these consoles fill for them? Who knows? I don't know what it is. It's an inanimate object. Somebody asked me the other day, Enrique, are you an Xbox dude or a PlayStation dude? Or a PC guy? My response was, I'm a gamer. I don't have allegiance to companies or platforms. My allegiance is to the Republic, Anakin. No, my allegiance is actually to video games. That's all that matters to me. That's it. So, yeah. And I'll get into that here in a little bit. So big shout out to everyone in the live chat. Luis Jimenez is in the chat. Envy, what's going on, guys? Envy says, I recently backed away from console wars. I've been a better person for it ever since. Envy, that is a wise decision. I have a blast trolling these motherfuckers, man. I love trolling the I shouldn't say I love trolling, but it's kind of fun to troll fanboys every once in a while. Just kind of sit back and, enjoy the show, if you will. And Nate, what's going on, my friend? So I do want to. Give me a sec here, guys. I'm just might have some folks jump in. Give me just a sec here. Sorry for the silence, guys. I'm trying to do 2 things at once right now. Anyhow, we kind of briefly, there was a topic that I want to talk about. Something that I actually had the pleasure of guesting on the Crossfire podcast yesterday. Last night, as a matter of fact. If you haven't checked it out, definitely check it out. It was myself, the Mooch. It was Gaming Forte, Xbot 448, Wilmy Hood, We're All in the House, and my man Undead, 3XVI. What's going on, Chief Tomei? Nate says they couldn't handle. Nate says they couldn't handle me spitting the truth. Look, man, I just look. I think it's interesting. Optimus Code, who we had as a guest here on BRAP 2 weeks ago. What's going on, Big Cloud? He brought up a great point, man. Everyone, I say, man, everyone. He said that like people oversimplify, and this is to you, Luis Jimenez. I am addressing this point to that people oversimplify the gaming industry without really knowing how the gaming industry operates. And I'm not trying to pick on here, Luis, but I do want to go to a GDC survey that just recently came out. So a game developer conference survey amongst game developers. The survey asked when asked which systems are you most interested in and wish to develop games for. Number one choice was PC with 50% of the respondents. Number two is PlayStation 5 with 38%. Number three, Nintendo Switch with 37%. Mobile with 34%. VR headsets was at 27%. The Xbox Series X was at 25%. So that is according to a survey of game developers from GDC, and the question was which platforms most interest you as a developer right now, and that was the survey. So what does that mean in the long run? Are developers not going to support the Xbox Series X? No, that console's still going to get support. It just means that developers look. If you look at the top three choices, right, it makes sense. PC, largest install base globally. PlayStation 5. And I'll get to your point, Luis, here. Luis said, developers won't get my money. It shows their bias against the Xbox platform. Luis, that has nothing to do with it. It's not bias. It's called business. Developers are going to typically show preference and interest in the consoles that have the largest install base. And so Luis Jimenez replies, well, PlayStation 5 doesn't have an install base yet. Why are they saying that about Series X and not PlayStation 5? Luis, and I'm not trying to pick on you, sir, but essentially the reason why developers have selected PlayStation 5, and to your point of it not having an install base, the reason is because of the PlayStation 4 install base. The assumption is that the install base of PlayStation 4 owners, the pool is bigger, hence they're going to migrate to the PlayStation 5. Now, if that does not happen, and the Series X, the Series X becomes the market leader, then yeah, you're going to see developers pivot and probably show more support to the Series X than the PlayStation 5. But because of the current install base, the market leader is Sony, whether you like it or not. Woo! The PlayStation 4 is the market leader. Now, if that makes you angry, I don't know what to tell you. It shouldn't. If you enjoy your Xbox, who cares? That's all that matters, right? Woo! But if you look at the top three choices by developers on which platform they're most interested to develop for, PC, 1.2 billion PC gamers globally. PlayStation 5, well, PlayStation 5, because of the install base of the PlayStation 4, the assumption here is that the PlayStation 5 is going to retain that majority of the install base on the PlayStation 4, because now we're tied to ecosystems. This was the generation that was very important because it was the generation where you really tied people and locked people in with digital purchases. Digital purchases account for 50% of all gaming purchases. Digital revenue accounts for more revenue than physical retail now. So Sony and Microsoft know that. That's why they're offering backwards compatibility. They want to keep people locked in. They know that people have digital investments. They know that these folks can't trade their games in at GameStop. They know that if you incentivize people to stay in an ecosystem, if you allow them to take their digital footprint with them. Makes sense, right? Good. Nintendo Switch, number 3, 37%. That makes sense. Why? Because Nintendo is selling a hell of a lot of Nintendo Switches right now. Nintendo is number 1. Mobile. We know mobile because mobile is a fucking ginormous market. VR is interesting, though. You see VR, 27%. It's not as big as the top 3, but potentially with the success of the Oculus, the new Oculus that came out, and I forget the name of it. We talked about it on Crossfire. Anyhow, there's with the technology improvements of VR, people are looking at potentially as VR being the next frontier, if you will. But I'm still on the fence with VR. I'll leave it at that. Anyhow, so Luis, to your point of your earlier, what you mentioned earlier. Look, man, I'm not trying to pick on you. I'm just saying. I mean, it's about the look when the 360 was the market leader. Developers were looking to primarily support the new Xbox One. I mean, that was, and they pivoted. So it can happen. People pivot. All right. Yeah, Pixel BitG says most interest is base where they can make money. Look, and I know, look, for some of the Xbox guys that are triggered, guys, don't worry, you're still getting games. Developers are still going to make games for the Xbox Series X. You'll still get your bangers, your Maddens, your Call of Duties. You're going to get your Halos, your Gears. You're going to get all that stuff. You're going to get all the goodies. And if you have Game Pass, which you should have, because Game Pass is a good value if you own an Xbox, you'll get that. PixelBitG says, so a clear rejection, that jackass logic at best. It's not a clear rejection. They're just focused on the console they suspect will do best next gen. Way to clickbait. Way to clickbait. Yeah, that's it. Pixel. That's exactly what it is, man. It is clickbait, sir. Got to drive that traffic, buddy. Pixelbeat says he has every right not to support devs who don't support the platform he likes, but I suspect devs will support both just fine. They should if they want to make money. Yeah, dude, Pixel, you know what? If he doesn't want to support developers, that's fine. That he has every right to do that. But let's do so thinking logically about it. Let's not get our emotions, in a tizzy and not look at this in a logical way. The issue here is that people tend to oversimplify the business of gaming. So, but look, I mean, the Xbox is still going to get games. I mean, it's going to look. Developers are still. I don't know how to say this. Anyone reading this shouldn't get upset. I think that's my point. Like, and I saw people get upset. Oh, developers are biased. I saw one person say GDC. This is biased against Microsoft. I'm like, it's not biased, people. Like, it's not what it is. It's not. This is a business. This ain't personal, people. It's not personal. Killmonger Ultra says, just join the stream. Who and what devs rejected the Xbox? JDev says, I'm upset. JDev, what's going on, my friend? No, you know what, Killmonger, that was just clickbait, man. Trying to, hey, man, I got to drive traffic in here, man. Got to drive some traffic. Hey, Jay, check your DM, by the way. But guys, speaking of, like, next console generation, like, look, I think whether you own an Xbox or PlayStation or whatever you mostly game on, look, I mean, we're really going to see, I think, a bigger leap in terms of next generation hardware. We're finally going to get rid of those dumpster ass Jaguar CPUs, which are terrible. And give me a sec here, guys. We're finally going to get rid of those, dumpster ass CPUs. And look, I've heard from developers that, in terms of power, if anyone's thinking about, there's always that conversation about power with these new hardware specs. The one thing that I've heard from developers is that no one needs to worry about power with either PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series X. These are going to be both very powerful consoles. I've heard that people are going to be wowed by what they see, what they see with these next generation games. And look, I can't wait. I cannot wait to see what they have in store for us. And what's interesting? I mean, we're kind of in a kind of a crossroads here in the gaming industry. I mean, we think about Graphic God. What's going on, man? Yeah, hey, Graphic. I need to talk to you about the animated background, man. I can't, dude. I'm not the OBS expert here. That is you, my friend. And by the way, Graphic God made me. If you guys look at the background here, the Brat background, Graphic God actually put that together for me. Does great work. He actually put together a animated background similar to what you see, but with like the Brat logo there, just kind of flashing. And so, Graphic. Yeah, we gotta sit down, man, because I couldn't get it to work for some reason, man. I don't know what was going on, but I've been meaning to talk to you about that, but we'll have to reconnect, man. But guys, if you guys are looking for work, like graphical work stuff for your podcast, or you're looking for a logo or anything, definitely hit up Graphic God. My man does great work. So thank you, Graphic God. Appreciate the new background for 2020, baby. Woo! So let's see. Mr. Miracle says PlayStation has driven more hype by doing absolutely nothing than Phil showing the Series X way too early. I mean, I don't know about that. I don't know if I would agree with that. I mean, we haven't heard from anything in Sony for some time, so I don't know if I would agree with that. Actually, I don't agree with that. Chief Tommy says indie devs prefer the Switch, but also like Xbox since there's less hoops to jump through than PlayStation. PC is just a clusterfuck. Are you referring to licensing? I don't know what you're talking about there, Chief. Let's see here, guys. Ooh, looks like a leak of the PlayStation 5 boot up in console. If you guys saw this video, there's a leak out there. I haven't seen it. I haven't played the video yet. But I did see there is that leak, guys. If you guys saw that leak of the PlayStation UI, looks very similar to the PlayStation 4. Which, by the way, I'm okay with that. I like the PlayStation UI. Nate says, thankfully, AMD has some huge breakthroughs with Ryzen CPUs, and the consoles will benefit from it. In the meantime, I got so many games to play. Yeah, Nate, dude, my backlog is real. I'll say this, to your point, Nate, PC gamers are really going to benefit too from these more powerful consoles, because now developers can target multi-thread CPUs, which they haven't been able to do because of weaker hardware. Ice Queen, what's going on? Craig, the tech. Craig, what's going on, dude? What's up, Born Distracted? Nate says PC is a cluster, but it's the easiest for devs to put their games on. That's why they just get it all. Lansville Paul says Sony sitting on a landmine about to blow. I'm assuming that's a good thing. Yeah, Nate says I love the PlayStation UI. I love it too. It's just something it's very simplistic. I love it. I mean, it's just I don't know. It's just very very nice. I'll leave it at that. And I'm glad they're not drastically changing it. So, by the way, guys, I want to introduce a returning guest, my man, J-Dub. J-Dub, what's going on, dude? Oh, I can't hear him. Hold on a sec here, guys. Hold on just a sec. Gotta love Discord. Let me see here. Oh, that's right. Hey, JW, you there, dude?
I'm here, man.
Oh, I can hear you now, man. All right, perfect.
Perfect, perfect. What's up, everybody?
Jay, dude, hey, man, welcome back, man. I'm glad. Hey, I'm glad you're on Brat, man, because I like to troll fanboys every once in a while. It's kind of fun, you know.
It is. It is.
And I know you are the master of it. You gotta leave those Xbox dudes alone, though, Jay. Dude, I, am like Jay, Jay is you are seriously gonna make someone real. You're gonna ruin someone's day, man.
Hey, man.
Like it sounds crazy, but I'm being serious. Like I see dudes like get angry. I'm like, you guys, it's funny. Like people get mad at King, right, on ILP, but
Yeah.
King trolls the shit out of people,
Exactly.
and people get mad.
Exactly. Well, that's what we do, right? We just I don't know. For some reason, guys seem to take that stuff super serious, and it bothers them to the core. And so, that's just more fun for me.
You know what's funny, Jay, is that you in the community, man, like just as a gamer, man, like you're a hardcore gamer, man. Like people don't know this. Like, I don't know. I shouldn't say that, but maybe some people don't know. They probably assume, oh, he's a pony. But dude, you own all consoles. You play on all platforms.
I do, man. I do. Guys used to give me crap when they see me on Sea of Thieves or something like that, and I'm like, look, man, I'm having a good time. I'm having fun. I mean, but it is what it is, and I get it. It's the quick tweets and the tongue in cheek things that I say or information that I leave out that rubs people the wrong way, and it gets a reaction, and it gets the reaction that a lot of times I'm looking for, just to see what people are going to say and see what kind of replies going to get. And a lot of them are hilarious. You just kind of start something and just see how it goes.
Yeah, it's interesting, man. Is that I know you saw the GDC survey that came out. And
Yes.
I saw people get upset. Like one guy in the live, and I'm not trying to pick with him. Like I appreciate Luis Jimenez coming by and hanging out with us. But and it's like my man Optimus said. Like there people oversimplify the industry and how it works because they don't truly understand it. And he said, oh well, this is, why would they? There's obviously bias here by devs because, there's no install base for the PlayStation 5. And I'm like, but that's not what that's based off the current install base.
Listen, let me speak to that. That what that is. That says that's damage control. Here's the thing, right? Without them doing that poll, it's a known fact that PlayStation has a much higher install base. It has a much higher mind share with all gamers. It has it's a worldwide, world recognized brand. You wouldn't dare, you wouldn't dare question that if it was Apple. If a new iPhone was coming out, you wouldn't see a Android guy say, "Well, that's not fair. They're saying this is that." Like I don't know. And these are the type of conversations I like having for various reasons, because it shows you something that there's a lot of people in denial about certain things. There's a lot of trigger words. There's a lot of people that are looking for excuses from this generation. Enrique, there's a lot of guys that won't own up to this particular generation and what happened. And you show them some stats. I just took one of, I believe it was IGN's accumulation.
Yeah, you made people
consoles and stuff. I just posted that. That's all I did.
You made people angry.
And man,
media bias, man. Media bias.
And I'm like, guys, you knew this without that chart being up there. You knew that Xbox was down where it was, and why would you get angry? I thought sales didn't matter. I thought I thought none of that stuff mattered, but obviously it does. It really does. The guys just don't like talking about it. They don't want to be reminded of that.
JW, you know what's funny, man? Like I used to console war back in the days, man. Like literally console war. Like on
Yeah.
the GameSpot forums. I was a moderator. Um and I was the Xbox community moderator for those forums, and I was on the OG Xbox. This goes back, man, like 18 years now, right?
Yeah.
And I used to I remember I got into it with Greg Kasavin, who
Seven. Okay.
who was at the time the senior chief editor for GameSpot. He's actually he's funny, man. Years later, he actually this is about 3 years ago. He came on BRAP. He's part of Supergiant Games now, and he came on BRAP and as a guest, man, as a developer guest of ours. And but yeah, I got it because he reviewed a game that I was like, oh, you be biased, you all don't like Xbox. And the problem is that, and I realized, and this is why I poke fun of it now, I was so, and because I probably didn't have a lot, I could tell you I didn't have a lot of responsibilities in my life at the time, man. Didn't have kids, I was in my early 20s, you know what I'm saying? Like, the only thing I was like, but I was also in this, like, this echo chamber with other Xbox gamers, right?
Yeah.
And we're like, oh, yeah, no one's giving Xbox props. No one's giving Xbox respect, Fuck this and media bias. Those fuckers don't, I mean, seriously,
Yeah.
And what I realized was that everything that I was saying and thinking was so irrational. It wasn't based on anything factual or anything that would really impact my ability or my overall enjoyment of that console. And then one day, like, I woke up and I'm like, wait a minute, like, what the fuck am I doing here? I'm a grown man, and I'm out here arguing over plastic, like that. And I go back and I look at it, and some of the conversations I had with people, it was really ignorant, man. Like we were, like J-Dub, we were just being ignorant. And the one thing that I took away, I used to always, and I had this conversation with Mooch and DM. I said, Mooch, I said the reason why I've been so, like, kind of like, you know what, like, Microsoft needs to show me more, right? And look, it's great they bought these studios. I think that's wonderful. I'm not going to downplay that. Those were big moves, right?
Yeah.
But now you got to show me. And people are like, Enrique, what are you talking about? Like, we know Obsidian, they just released, Outer Worlds and, Hellblade. And I'm like, yeah, that's great. That's great. Those are two studios, that's great. I want to see what the other studios are going to do too. And I've lived this for 18 years, J-Dub, with Xbox. I remember when PlayStation 2 had Jak and Daxter, right?
Yep.
And I was like, oh my God. Well, Nintendo had Mario. I'm like, oh my God, like Xbox is going to have, when I heard, they got R-Tune working on Blinks. Blinks is going to be amazing. It's going to be Xbox biggest platformer, and then Voodoo Vince was like, it's going to be amazing. And, it's going to, we're finally going to get a game that lives up to, like, a Sony platformer, or a, it's going to live up to that standard of Sony and Nintendo. And you know what? It never happened.
Never had.
It never happened. And it's only happened a few times with Gears, Forza, and Halo, and that's it. I mean that's really it. I mean
17 years, not 7.
Wait, I don't want to discount Rare's early work on the 360 because but those were existing like Banjo was existing.
Yeah, but
already.
Rare was created with Nintendo. I mean, they kind of got their footing there. So, I agree with you. And you know what? It's still like that today, though, Enrique. People are still saying they're still hoping that those days come back where they're going to get that something that Nintendo has or that Sony has. That something, and whether it's graphically intensive game or a compelling story or whatever, they're just hoping that comes. And I look back in this generation, and the beginning of this generation, I bought so many Xboxes, having that faith, this will come. In 2 and 3 years pass by, another console, another 2 years pass by, another console, and I finally realized around the 6 year mark, six and a half, close to 7 year mark, a whole generation has passed with me waiting for that something, and that shit never came. And now they're trying to sell me on the next generation in hopes that something will come then. So eventually, Enrique, right? On top of the 17 years that you were talking about, now I'm going to have to, now we're looking at the 24-year mark before something can possibly come to equate to a Nintendo or a Sony for what we're looking for. And
Yeah. Hey, real
it's
quick.
actually kind of sad.
Yeah.
You know, it is. And a lot of guys, they won't admit it. They'll hold the line, they won't admit it. But they know deep down, they do know deep down. And the reason we know that they know deep down is because when you post a chart, guys get in their feelings or start screaming and yelling, saying, you need to be more positive, stop being negative. They start with the excuses that we've told ourselves this generation and the generation before and the generation before that.
You know, I want to go to I want to go to something in the live chat. Damien Percival says GDC is mostly into developers. This is extremely misleading. GDC is not just indie developers. They are major. I have a friend.
They are all of them. Listen, you go ahead, man, because it's this here. Here we come with the excuses again. Go ahead.
I have a friend who goes to GDC, and he works for Bethesda. Bethesda is not an indie developer. Are they indie developers? Yes. But here's the thing. It's this, and this is, and so the fact that I have a couple issues with this statement. One, it's not just indie developers that are part of GDC and who took this survey. Yes, they are part of it. Two, indie developers, whether you regardless of their size, are still game developers, right? And indies have played a tremendous, or have had a tremendous impact in gaming this console generation, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Ninja Theory was an indie developer that basically made a, big,
Bingo.
double A, triple A experience on an indie budget.
Bingo.
So let's not sit there and discount developers based on size.
What about Sea of Thieves? What about State of Decay 2, right? All of these franchises that are Microsoft's franchises are what? Indie and double A. So, hey, if you're gonna shit on them, then you're gonna have to, the mirror is gonna be looking back at you.
Yeah, and the other thing, man, is like I said, it's not just indies. They are marquee players in the industry that go to GDC, that are part of it. I mean, Hideo Kojima is going to be speaking at GDC this year.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, and then you're basically discounting indie developers to fit a narrative, basically. Oh, well, that doesn't matter because it's indie developers. No, it does matter.
Yeah, it's the bird box effect. It's the put the the blindfold over your head and look for another excuse to blame somebody. Then they'll go back to media bias or whatever the source. The mere fact that GDC is composed of game developers from the industry, all of them combined. So guess what? Microsoft Studios are going to be there. Sony Studios are going to be there. Nintendo Studios are going to be there. Everybody's going to be there. So you mean accumulation of all of these guys, there's media bias because they say that they have a stronger interest in developing for PlayStation 5, a known brand, a worldwide brand, something with over 106 million potential customers. That makes no sense for you not to think that. And again, only the guys who will scream media bias, only the guys with the bird box bandana over their eyes will say that. And at some point in time, Enrique, we have to own up. We have to face reality. We can't keep going with the pointing fingers and, oh, people just hate Microsoft or they just hate Xbox. No, they don't. The reality is this particular generation Sony delivered, Nintendo delivered, at least somewhat with one of their consoles. And Microsoft, you know, they're trying to find their way. Uh, we'll have to wait to see next generation what kind of games they can pull off. While I applaud Microsoft for, um, going out and buying studios, I need to remind everybody that these were the same people that did not invest for 3 whole years. They sat on their hands. They canceled Lionhead. They canceled a bunch of other studios. They canceled a bunch of games, and they never replaced them with anything. So
Yeah.
that's why Xbox this generation ended up in the position that it's in. Now here's to next generation, but let's face it, Phil Spencer went out and bought a bunch of indie and AA studios because he said he wanted to be able to release 4 games a year, for those titles a year. He wanted a lot of different content, and the content he wanted was for Game Pass.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of guys. Mikey Barber even said it. Stop basically forcing these studios and these developers to do something that they never promised.
Well, he also said that
w-
you're going to need to, in order to move the needle to get people to leave PlayStation and go back to Xbox, you're going to need big AAA games, big
Yes.
compelling AAA experiences to do
Big
that.
blockbusters.
And
Exactly.
and look, and that doesn't mean Xbox sucks. It just means that, like everything else in life, there are certain companies that do things better than other companies, right? That's just the facts of life.
But
Just
he's
like
a
this,
PC guy. But Mikey Barber is a PC guy.
yeah. Well, I don't blame him. I mean, that's my platform of choice, PC Master Race. But the problem. Here's the thing. I think people. And I go back to how I used to think. 17 years ago, I was in that echo chamber, where I wanted Xbox to be something that it wasn't. I wanted it to be like PlayStation. And instead of just saying, you know what, I'm happy with my Xbox. I like Halo. This shit is cool. I'm good. That's what people should be focused on.
Yeah.
It's like, look, man, you got Game Pass. Game Pass they just dropped A Plague's Tale, man. A Plague's Tale. Children of Morta. It's a great. I mean, those are 2 good games.
Yeah.
And I don't see anybody talking about that on Game Pass, except it's all I see is media bias.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, right? I got a couple of things, right? There's a couple of questions I want to ask, mostly from the chat. But it seems like, right, a lot of times guys do want to go back to that echo chamber. They don't want to hear difference of opinion. They don't want to debate differences of opinions and directions. And I believe, that's okay. If you feel like, well, what you're saying is not what I want to hear. I want to hear what they call it positivity, in air quotes, positivity. That is not necessarily positive. That just means I want you to tell me about how my preferred platform is doing good, how it's kicking ass, it's going to win, it's going to do the sales, it's going to do all the stuff that I say that I don't care about. And that's why guys tend to run to certain podcasts and they just stay there. They refuse to leave out of that bubble.
But Jay, you know what's funny about that? You say run to certain podcasts. So you're talking about console centric podcasts, whether it's a PlayStation podcast or an Xbox podcast. Here's the funny thing: they say media bias, right?
Yes.
And then they go to these console centric podcasts, and they go there because these console centric podcasts, they feed into or they agree with that person's opinion, right?
Yes.
So basically, what you're saying is, I'm calling media bias, but I'm going to go to a console centric podcast to confirm my own bias.
There you go.
Like it's like, wait a minute, like what the fuck is going on? Like, really?
Exactly. And it does show the hypocrisy. And it's okay. It's okay for guys to say, look, man, look, I'm an Xbox guy, or I'm a PlayStation guy, or I'm a Nintendo guy, and I only want to hear positive things about my platform. And the moment I hear something negative that's out, you might as well be in politics, right? It's like the whole Democrats versus Republican stuff, the conservative versus liberals, the stuff that people say that they don't, it's the same exact thing.
But here's the thing, like Jay, like there's some things that you've said that I don't agree with, right? But at the end of the day, We're good. Look, you and I aren't going to always see eye to eye, but you know what? The common thing that we have, the common bond, is that we love gaming.
There you go.
And like,
and I'll do you one better. There's a lot of times, right? That's why I do a bunch of different podcasts. You know, I get on a bunch of people different podcasts, from Xbox podcasts to Nintendo podcasts to PlayStation podcast. But it's not that I want someone to tell me what I want to hear. I want to hear different opinions to see that if my opinion, if the way I'm thinking or the way that I like a game or I don't like a game, maybe there's something I'm missing from that. Going back to Plague's Tale, right? That game first came out last year. I bought it, I beat it. I got a couple of things to do before I get the platinum. But anyway, great game, but I paid my full money for that game, right? And so a year later, this game comes on Game Pass and people like, oh my God, this is wow, I'll finally get to play it. And as a gamer, that kind of pisses me off because I'm like, these games come out, right, all the time, and you guys don't buy these games day one. You don't buy them in the time frame that the developer needs you to buy them in. When they have the biggest impact. This is how you get sequels. A developer releases a game, you go out and buy it. It does well enough for them to start working on a sequel. But if you wait a year for it to come to a service, you really didn't support that developer. You really didn't, you know, and that's, I don't know. Am I wrong with that in my thinking on that?
No, I don't think you are at all. I don't think so at all. I do want to go to live chat real quick because Pixel Bit said that hold on a sec here. By the way, great chat. Said Brap is also an echo chamber. Let's keep it 100. Yeah, I would disagree with you, sir. We give everyone criticism on this podcast. As a matter of fact, if you listen to this week's Brap, we were saying how Sony's done a piss poor job in marketing PlayStation Now. How Sony needs to step up their PlayStation Now initiative. I mean, I said this loud and clear. I was like, look, what's up, Forte?
What's up, man? I heard some complaining going on.
Forte's like, oh, Enrique's at it again.
I was like, man, I just left a soccer game on my way home, work, and I turn on Brap, and I'm like, what are these dudes talking about now?
No,
we're just talking about the GDC survey. But no, I mean,
just one second. Damon Percival. Yes, I did buy it on PlayStation last year. I believe it was April or May. You can Google it and look up when the Plague's Tale released. But I remember because when I logged into my PlayStation, went to the store, it was there. IGN had been talking about it, whatever. It was a new game. So I bought it exactly when it came out. And so, yes, it's been out for a long time. It didn't just come out. It's just kind of informing you on it.
One thing, just to talk about what you're talking about waiting and buying. I think that was a problem last generation, where this generation, people have kind of settled games they like to play. And even if it's a game that they like PlayStation, even if it's a game I think they would like to play, it's a game that they're saying, I can play that at a later date. There's so many other things I want to play, or I'm knee deep in Call of Duty, something like that, and I really don't want to stop playing that. It's more the fact that there's more games that take up time more than ever versus little where people feel like I can get that game time, it's player experience. I can go through that probably 3-4 hours. I just don't feel like doing it right now. And by the time you look up that game, PlayStation Plus or Xbox Game Pass or Games Gold, and I mean honestly, if you want to think about it, Games Gold and PlayStation Plus kind of started a long time ago. There was times where I would be like, I'm about to buy this game, and then next thing I know, it ended up in not Game Pass, but on free offerings from services for when they were starting to give real good games, stop giving good games in them. So I think that was the start of it. But most people, it's just that generation where we got games like Destiny, got games like Call of Duty,
the services games,
Grand Theft Auto,
the services games.
Those games, those hold a lot of the play. and they feel like if they stop playing, they get left behind. Versus something like God of War, where you feel like get in, you get out, you're done. Like I'm very with mine. I played Destiny pretty much this whole generation. There's not 2 days that took me off of it. God of War was one of those that I literally Destiny down for 1 full week, beat that game 100%, and then guess what? I went right back to playing Destiny, and everything else has been on the back burner. It really takes a special game one to stop playing the like to play the most. I'm not saying that's a right or wrong way of thinking about it, but I think a lot of people fall in that traffic now versus what it was last generation, where you would just pick up a game and buy it day one. This generation kind of changed all that.
I can get down with a lot of that. What you're saying, a lot of those services games do. And we're all a big variety of gamers. Some gamers, they only care for indie games, some care for the services, some care for the single player, some for the multiplayer shooters and stuff like that. I get that, but it still goes back to the sequels, right? If you want your platform to thrive and you want these games, like for example, Hellblade. I remember when that game came out on PlayStation. It was a PlayStation, timed exclusive. It came in. Some gamers, it really didn't knock your socks off. It was a good, decent game. It really was. Good graphics. It was a different type of game. And so a year later, it ended up coming to Xbox or whatever. And I think altogether the game sold maybe 250,000 copies. And I guess for whatever the money they developed it for, I guess that was good enough for them to parade it around or whatever. But it just kind of did something to me when they actually brought out Hellblade 2 and they said, "Hey, we're making Hellblade 2." That was a shocker for me. I was like, "Yes, finally a sequel," right? Because I think about it like this: Uncharted 1 didn't light the world on fire, but you needed a sequel to do that. And so they knocked it out the park with Uncharted 2. And that led on to the whole other series, right? Same thing with The Last of Us. There's just, if you don't have any sequels, you'll never know what the franchise could have been. I think that's why we're waiting for like an Alan Wake, Quantum Break, all of these games that that the Xbox One had this early part of this generation. We're looking for, or people have been asking for sequels from them. But then I go back and realize, I remember a lot of these guys did not go out and buy and support those games. And even to this day, there's people on social media saying, I'm not going to buy games anymore. I'm just going to wait for them to come to Game Pass. And I'm thinking, if I'm developing a game and I know that this particular fan base isn't going to buy my product for a year to 2 years, would I even put my game on that platform, or would I tailor it towards someone else who has the different model where I can get paid day one when they go out and buy the game? I mean, what is your thought about that?
Well, okay, so let me speak to the first talking about what you was talking about, because I agree with, for the most part, what you were saying.
Hey, Forte, I'm sorry, I don't interrupt, man, but I got a super chat I got to take care of real quick. Reform Tone with the awesome $5 super chat. Thank you, sir. Says at JDub, love it or hate it, subscription is the future. Day and date is inevitable. Brap.
Maybe so. When that time comes, I will be there. Until then, I will tout my exclusives.
Well, I think the biggest thing that people need to realize is, like, your opinion definitely is not wrong. The problem is where you and a lot of people are part of the minority. When they put out that decade-long top-selling games generation, 90% of the games on that list are Call of Duty service. Yep. And let's also go back to the point where we were talking about with the way the games are trade out there. The exclusives sell the system. Absolutely right. You are right. Exclusives are the things that, push the lifeblood of the system, but then third party are the ones that basically casual. They're the casual. The problem is, like, I agree, Mass Effect 2 you would never knew how good Mass Effect was until Mass Effect got like 100% with it. But most people just need to realize that when it comes to these games, most of the player base doesn't care about the games that we care about. They just care about the games they can play with their friends and games have the ability to play whenever they want to play. They don't want to feel like they feel pressure to have to jump into this game to do this and do that. And unfortunately, casual what are those experiences like Call of Duty stuff are easy to get in. My kids are killing me right now.
Oh, it's okay.
Bye. I'll see you guys later. Dropping them off to their aunt's house. But overall, it's more of a conundrum that hardcore has to deal with more than casual, because most people, yes, 106 million consoles were sold for PlayStation, and that number is going to get bigger by the time this generation ends. So it might be close to 10, because some people are still going to play on their PS4s and not even think about a PS5.
Yeah.
But the difference is what's going to happen to all those people that are casual when the next generation. Guarantee the same thing's going to happen all over again. Call of Duty is going to be a one sold game because he's saying that game's going to die. We're going to get Grand Theft Auto 6 next generation. We already know that's pretty much going to be something to work. That's going to be probably the number one sold game generation. And that is the conundrum that as gamers contribute, until the majority of people decide that I'm not just going to play games and I'm gonna go into ecosystem where I can play other things like God of War, it's heralded to be one of the best games that came out last generation and only sell 9 to 12 million, or 106. And when people, I hate when people try to say 106 million consoles and only 12 million sold. I mean, I hate when people try to compare that, because I believe it's not about the numbers, totality of how many still enjoy it. 12 million people booted that game up and enjoyed that game most, and that's all that really matters.
Listen, it's and I agree with you, and I'll double on that. It's hard to get 100 million people to agree on anything when there's tons of options, right? This is how you look at it in a relationship. How well is 7 million or 10 million sold compared to 100 million install base? This is how you look at it. How many games have been released out in the wild? If this generation they've released 1,000 games, 1,000 different types of games, that means, that's how you look at it. When you're doing the math, you look at, okay, well, 10 million games. Okay, well, how many games were out there that released this generation? Well, if you look at Sony, right, their gamers have bought 1.15 billion games,
right?
And that's out of 106 million install base.
Yeah.
So it really kind of puts it to, you have to look at this from a different standpoint. A lot of people think, well, you have 106 million, you should be able to sell at least 90 million copies of that game. That has never been the case about anything. We have billions and billions and billions of computers in the wild, but not 100% of those computers are running Windows. We may be looking at 70 to 80%, but the rest of them are running Linux, Unix, and all kind of other different operating systems out there. So you're never going to get 100% or even close to it when you have a variety of things out there. Now, I want to touch back on the point about exclusives. How can exclusives sell the system and none of the top sellers were exclusives? Well, how about this? It all goes back to that mantra. When you walk in that store day one, you're going to see Call of Duty on this system, Call of Duty on this system, and Call of Duty on that system. You have 3 different options, probably 4 if you decide to include the PC. What's going to differentiate this system over that system? You're going to look and say, oh, okay, Uncharted. Okay, Horizon Zero Dawn. Okay, Halo. That's when you get into the meat and potatoes of, that's the hard decision that gamers are going to have to ask themselves. Which one of those exclusives are they going to buy? Not the multi-plats, because those come on everything.
Right.
So, think about it. This generation and even last generation has proved it. Last generation, the PlayStation 3 came out a year later. It was $300 more expensive than the competition. And yet they were able to come back and catch up when it comes to sales, and they were able to outdo the 360. And they did that not with a bunch of multiplats, because everyone know that the multiplats ran better on the 360. But they started releasing the exclusive content that you couldn't get anywhere else. They came out with the Uncharted. They came out with the Last of Us, and start dropping the Gran Turismos and stuff like that. And that stuff counts. It's tangible. Don't sit here and lie to yourself and say that exclusives don't matter because your platform no longer touts them or talks about them or care about them. Like, stop it. You're listen. I've been gaming a long time, man, from the Atari 2600 days. None of this stuff has changed. It's always been the same all throughout all these different generations. It's always been the same thing. So it's not going to change. That's not going to change. Exclusives will always be a system seller come day one. Forte,
Oh my goodness, I can't. I'm sorry, dude.
What happened?
Exclusives don't matter? Come on, man.
Who said that?
Damien Percival.
Yeah.
That's Forte, you were in retail, sir.
Yes.
You could speak to why exclusives matter probably better than us. Why do they matter, sir?
Well, okay, so they do matter. They matter especially. Okay, so perfect example. I bought my PS4 knowing that there wasn't really a game I wanted to play day one. I mean, I played Killzone, but it wasn't a Killzone I remembered. I was like, they changed it up too much, but I still bought it. I bought my PS4 because God of War, that's a favorite franchise on PlayStation. I knew it was the God of War coming. They didn't even announce, any idea the God of War release. But I still bought my PS4 day one and said my PS4 sit here until God of War, because I know I'm gonna get one when that comes out. So yes, that is the main. I bought a PlayStation just to play God of War, and I played it. And it's just like everybody else. Like Halo, I literally bought when Halo was first announced. Before it was announced to the Xbox, I told this story I think on Breakfast Boom or Primetime Gaming with Boom, and I literally went out to Best Buy and bought it was at Apple's, and they announced Halo for the first time on stage, saying it was coming to Apple, and I was like, okay, I'm going out and buying a graphics card for my, and they had the Voodoo 5 was 300 or something like that. It was on the back of the box, Halo game that was supporting it. I went out and bought a graphics card just for that game, just to find out 4 or 5 months later at E3 that Microsoft bought Bungie into X. And guess what? I literally shifted my focus to Xbox just because that game was a game I was so interested in that I wanted to buy it, and I bought an Xbox just for that game. So exclusives are the main reason you buy the play. It's like like you said, it's the biggest difference fact. I always tell people retail, they say, well, which system is best? I say, well, what kind of games do you like? Do you like RPGs? Do you like first shooters? And say it depends on there. Do you want to play with your friends? Like more single player experience? This system has that. This system has that. And did you ever play God of War? Did you ever play Last of Us? Did you ever play games like play Halo? And if they answer those questions, I say, well, this is the direction you go in, because those are the things that make the system different.
Yeah.
Even look, people get down on God of War, and even Spider-Man. Spider-Man sold 15 million. People get down on that, say that's not enough on 100 billion install base. But let's be real. Let's literally be real about this. Halo 3, the highest selling Halo game ever, sold about 13 million, 86 million consoles.
There you go.
And that's a Halo fan. I love Halo. And guess what? That's why with Microsoft not stopped in their market. Halo was everywhere. Everywhere. It is sold 13 million, 80 on an install base. And granted, this is over the course of the rest of the year, but over the course that game was relevant. So 13 million on 86 million consoles. So it goes both ways no matter what. And guess what? Till Call of Duty Modern Warfare, Halo 3, by far outside of war stuff and like Nintendo and their crazy self, was the highest selling game of all time.
There you go.
Until Modern Warfare 4 came out and killed. So 36 million. Now that's a game that sold like 40% attach rate to every system sold out there, which is insane. The only closest to that is Switch this generation with, I think it's Mario Kart, which is like almost to the attach rate on every Switch sold.
Yeah, I think Zelda Breath of the Wild, I remember they ended up selling more copies of the games than systems that were out in the wild.
Exactly.
So that is, and think about it, that's Nintendo, right? That was on the world's weakest console. That had nothing to do with power. It had nothing to do with any other excuses out there.
J-Dub, I gotta go to the live chat here with this Damon guy.
Get him.
Damon, I don't know how long you've been gaming for, but it's very clear that you don't have a grasp or understanding how the industry works, based on your comments.
Yeah. Well, I mean, how about this?
And I just want to say something. Historically speaking, Damon, if you're going to sit there and hold that position that, only hardcore gamers buy exclusives or exclusives don't matter, let me give you a couple examples, okay? The big reason why Microsoft was able to break into the gaming industry when no one gave him a fucking flying chance.
Bam.
And I was there. I was there in 2001. EA wasn't bringing Madden football to the Xbox platform. Big developers weren't supporting the Xbox platform. Everyone was like, this shit is going to fail. And you know why the OG Xbox managed to outsell Nintendo's GameCube?
Exclusives.
An exclusive called Halo, sir. Halo. Let me spell that for you. Halo. Halo. You want to know why Nintendo was able to resuscitate the dead gaming industry in the 80s after E.T. killed it?
Mario.
A game called Mario, which was exclusive. You want to know why Sega did so well with the Genesis? Sonic the Hedgehog, Altered Beast, exclusives. So to sit there and say, because it doesn't sell like Call of Duty, exclusives don't matter. No, they do matter. They matter because they are a brand's identity. These companies are in the business to make money. They want to entice people to buy their platforms, whether it's hardware, and as we're shifting now to ecosystems, they want you to buy into their ecosystems or hardware, and the only way they do that is by differentiating themselves from their competition. And how do they do that, sir? Exclusives. Can you get a Big Mac at Burger King? No. Why? Because McDonald's wants you to come in and visit and frequent their fast food chains for the Big Mac. It's not rocket science, sir.
There you go.
I mean, we have I don't like this whole, like, seriously, dude, like you totally, I mean, the Halo was such a big deal. I mean, Forte, oh my God, this is like, like we go back to the days of with Halo back in the days, and like Halo was such a cultural phenomenon.
Dog, like I remember 30.
What's up, B Money?
Hook up.
What's up, fellas?
Yo, B Money.
That's more.
Hey, Forte, you're breaking up. We can't hear you. You want to hop out and hop back in?
Yeah, you're breaking up, Forte.
B Money, what's your take on it, brother?
B Money, what's your take on? I can't believe. First of all, B Money, I can't believe we're even having this conversation about exclusives. Like, I've been gaming almost 40 damn years.
Yeah. And
I know how this thing works, man. I mean, B, you've been gaming for a long time too. I mean, why can you preach?
I mean, in regards to exclusives, that's always one thing I've always preached, man. They have always mattered. But I think the further and further we have come in our gaming lives, I think you can see that, you know what I mean, to most people they really don't matter. You know what I mean? Like Sony releases a bunch of exclusives, Microsoft releases a bunch of exclusives, and there's key standouts on each platform. Same thing with Nintendo.
Yeah.
Like they release exclusives all the time, and you know what I mean, the majority of the games that sell high are the staples in their franchise, whether it's Mario or Zelda or Mario Kart. Those are the games that move the needle. Does Fire Emblem move the needle the same way that Mario does? No. You know what I mean? Like, and that's an exclusive. You know what I mean? Does Xenoblade move the needle like Mario Kart? No. You know what I mean? So at a certain point, you know what I mean, there's tiers to exclusives. You know what I mean? And there's always going to be the standouts, you know, the Spider-Mans of the world, the God of Wars, things like that. But who gave a fuck about Gravity Rush? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Who cares about all the other smaller games that PlayStation released, like Bound? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They came from Sony Santa Monica, but nobody ever talks about it. You know what I mean? So like, there's tiers to it, and you know what I mean, each one of the exclusives hold a certain value to certain people. I would say that if Halo wasn't a first person shooter, most people wouldn't give a fuck about it. Like not to the point that they do or that they did. Like if Halo was just a sci-fi game, almost like a sci-fi RPG, it wouldn't be held in the same stature that it is now because it's a shooter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The same way with God of War. You know what I mean? If God of War didn't use you know, the different gods in the game, if it wasn't that type of game, if it was just a normal hack and slash game, like nobody would give a fuck about that game.
Yeah. But
you know what I mean? There's plenty of hack and slash games that come out every year, like nobody talks about them.
Yeah, but B, like what I was addressing in the live chat, some guy was like, exclusives don't matter. I'm like, well, I was giving examples of, and you're right. There's certain exclusives that people won't even touch. I get that, but I mean, there's a reason why we have exclusives, right? Because
I mean, at the end of the day, you know, I mean, these companies want to sell you a product, and they want you involved, be involved in their product.
A good thing would be Stadia right now.
Right.
Everyone's saying, well, why should I get Stadia? They need some exclusives. They need exclusives, but I thought exclusives didn't matter. If you just have a system that's nothing but multi-plats, what incentive is it for someone to go and switch or go over there to spend money over there? That's the problem. And you know,
now if Stadia comes out at E3 and they announce similar to like Microsoft did, where they announced, you know, they purchased 4 or 5 different studios,
yes,
and they have exclusive content coming, more people gonna pay attention to it. Because
Absolutely.
guess what? You know what I mean? Those games should not be played anywhere else but on Stadia. You know what I mean? So there is a driver to having exclusives on your platform.
That's and just like Netflix, like people don't subscribe to Netflix so they can watch reruns of, you know, Friends. I mean, people subscribe to Netflix. Why? Because they want to see what? Exclusive Netflix content. They want to see Stranger Things. You know, they want to see I forget what some of the other popular Netflix shows are. You know, but
well, let's break it down for real though. Like people subscribe to Netflix because it's cheap as hell. If Netflix costs the same amount that cable companies charge you for that same content, people wouldn't buy that shit. I mean, let's just keep it a buck. You know what I mean? Like if they charge you $60 a month to access that same content, nobody would give a damn.
Yeah, but what about like something like Disney though? Like I mean, people went to Disney, that subscription service, because of Disney's exclusive content. I mean, that's why I went. You know, I subscribed to it for the exclusive content.
They talk about those subscribers the first week that it came out. When was the last time they updated you? How many people subscribed to Disney Plus?
Well, I'm sure people fell off. That's like I hear people say subscriptions.
They have one show that drove people to Disney Plus, and that was The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Now that's over. Disney ain't talking about that shit now.
That's true. That's
true. It's
that,
interesting with services. Like, I'm sorry, Jay, I don't mean to cut you off, but I want to make this quick point. You know, people always say, "Oh, well, you know, subscription's the future," and maybe it is, but it's still in its infancy. And developers, some developers are like, you know what, we're for it. Other developers are kind of on the fence. I think this came out of GDC. That's another survey that was done where I think it was maybe 1/4 of developers were kind of on the fence with it. Another 1/4 didn't know what to really think. The other were like, yeah, you know, it's a good thing. You know, we're on board. So it's because it's still like people don't know really the impact just yet. because it's so new. And I'm not saying that it's not going to work, but I will say, like, there was an interesting point made by a certain NPD analyst who said, if consumer spending, if consumer average spending decay is offset by user growth, then it may benefit developers. If more users don't show up, however, developers divided on how subscription service will affect game value. So, and
that's just basic math, though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you choose to stop buying games because you're now subscribed to the service and you're paying for the service every month, or however you choose to pay for it, then that means that's where the developer is going to put their game at. But if you stop buying games and you're not subscribing to the service because whatever reason, whether you go to PC or just go to a different platform, or whatever the case, and you're not going to subscribe to whatever service is out there, then developers are like, hey, I don't need to really put my games in a subscription because there's not enough people there, so my game doesn't hold any value there. So that
why
totally
Nintendo
makes
don't
sense.
put the stuff? Why Nintendo don't put their stuff? They don't need to.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That goes to another thing, right? That goes to another point. Those services, subscription services like Game Pass, you find out a lot of the indie developers love it because that gives people the opportunity and more exposure for their games. Where a lot of people, I mean, you can hear it, you can see it on social media. People like, oh yeah, I'll try that game. I probably would have never bought it, but now I get to try it for free. Yes, so that's good for those guys. But imagine if a company like CD Projekt Red put Cyberpunk 77 day and date in a service like that. That would be harder for them because they don't know if that game is going to be a shell out hit.
Yeah, could it stand out on its own rather than
or if it's one of those kind of like Rage 2. Some people tried and then they just kind of fall by the wayside. But imagine if Grand Theft Auto 6 or Grand Theft Auto 5, I'll just use that for example, would have dropped in Game Pass, right? Would have been a Game Pass. You got to play it for free, but you gotta keep playing. This company could have lost so much amount of money because it was in that type of service.
Well, if a game like that hits service, you get in the bag before you hit it. There's a bag being dropped at your front door that's gonna cover most of that.
Yeah.
No, I just think. Well, the last thing I was gonna say, the one thing I think people overlook where they keep saying this don't matter is if you look at Nintendo should be the perfect case study because their system thrives most off of people why do you think third party put on now? At first they didn't want to put the reason they put them on there now is because Nintendo has sold so many systems based off their exclusive that third party developers and we have to put our games on there because that's a big piece of a pie that we have an opportunity selling. And that do matter because we have literally system operation that's pretty much sold off its alone. Nobody buys those to play third party games. It's never been a thing. Well, not since the NES and Super NES, but ever since third party owns Nintendo is after Nintendo already established base off the exclusives that they sell in the system. So that's the one that you look at as for the biggest to let you know that exclusives do matter, but people just want to belittle that because they don't play these, and that's another problem.
Yeah.
Right. And that's always been my biggest thing, Forte, is that, I mean, we see all these people talking about how they're gamers and I mean, they try to touch everything. But then when you come out and see these developers, like when Hellblade came out, and they said there's only 250,000 people who played the game initially when it was exclusive on PlayStation. Mm-hmm. It's like, yo, where the hell are all these people at? You know what I mean? There's 80 million people out there, but this game haven't even cracked 1 million. And you know what I mean? Now that it's it went to Xbox, then it did like 500,000 total, and then they announced that they were purchased, and now everybody's talking about the game. Like, I don't understand why people say like, oh, I touch everything, or I'm a gamer, or I mean, I really enjoy all these games that are coming out. But when you look at the MPD numbers, these games ain't moving. You know what I mean? A Plague's Tale is not moving. Greedfall is not moving. Like all these games have been unique that came out in 2019. People ain't touching them. You know what I mean? So that's why you see the encouragement of developers going to services like Game Pass is because like people ain't going out there buying these fucking games anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And then that kind of, but you got to realize it go back to the point. What I was trying to say is there were an indie developer. It was a smaller title. It was something, and again, is that model there is perfect for the indie developer. More exposure, you get to put it everywhere. That is for that. The big AAA stuff, I don't see that being as successful. And I'm not the only one that said that. Developer David Jaffe said that, and a couple other analysts have said that. But you know, listen, I think for Microsoft, it's good for them as long as they're going to put their games on there exclusively, their AAA exclusives on there, and then they'll put have some of these indie games and stuff in there, and from time to time the older AAA put it on there. I think it'll be okay. I mean, the older third party, I think the service is going to be okay. The number one thing is, though, you got to realize they started this thing, everyone signed up because it was $1. Everyone got on with the $2 deal. Everyone got in with all these different deals. The tipping point is going to be once those deals die off, once the subscriptions, once that bargain that they gave you for a year or two or whatever, once that dies down, then that's going to tell you where the benchmark is, who's really buying into this stuff, how can it be sustainable. And that's why I think a lot of the developers, the GDC devs, is like, well, we don't know what to see yet because we don't have any raw data. This is something that's new. We need to see what the data is going to look like.
Yeah, and I agree with that, man. I think that's kind of why you see that. That's why in that survey, not everyone's like, 100% on subscription service, because no one really knows the impact, how that's going to affect, them making money. Is it a situation that's sustainable? And it may be sustainable. It may be a situation that works. I mean, I will say this. I see a lot of people say, and I probably see this more in the Microsoft camp, where people are kind of like, everyone should go Game Pass and do what Microsoft's doing. And I would always say, yeah, I mean, I for me as a gamer, that'd be great. Like if Nintendo and Sony did that. But from a business standpoint, and I think the pie, first of all, I think the pie's so big right now. And I always go to like Nintendo, like everyone's like, you got to have a robust online system and friends list and all this stuff. And you got to be modern day. And then I'm like, and then here's Nintendo, hold my beer, right? And Nintendo is outselling both PlayStation and Xbox right now. They have I forget what the attach rate is. It's something ridiculous. And so I use Nintendo as an example because I really do think that I don't think there's probably one magic formula here in terms of being successful. I think the pie is so big now that you could probably attack this from different angles and still be successful as a hardware manufacturer, or as a developer, or whatever the case is. And I only say that because I look at Nintendo. Nintendo doesn't have this robust online multiplayer experiences. I mean, what was it like if you were playing when Splatoon 2 came out? Did you have to buy some kind of like dongle or something to hook up to your phone so you could do friends chat or something?
Yeah.
And Damien, you could say because the Switch is a handheld all you want, but let me tell you, Nintendo, they're not calling it a handheld; they're calling it a console. So that's you could sit there and say, oh, it's a handheld, but it's Nintendo's classifying it as a console, and that's what matters because it's Nintendo's product. They're saying it's a game console. And it's selling well, and what's driving it is games, and I've always said this, it always goes back to games. It always has, always go back to games. Like features are great, voice chat's nice, hopping in and out of party chat, that's all great, but none of that means shit unless you don't have games, or unless you have games.
I still think the worst thing, and the one thing that people need to realize, all three consoles different, going after different things. If Sony is trying to do something that Xbox isn't trying to do. Xbox is trying to do something that the other ones aren't. And I really go back to had this video when he talked about how PlayStation Plus is game, and he felt like he didn't get experience from Sony that took advantage of the multiplayer for him. And that's not saying that there was no multiplayer place, because third party has a lot of, but he was talking experience Sony, but Sony they don't really go after that. That's not something they're after. They're after the single player experiences that people love from their system, and that's the reason they sell so much. Where Xbox is more of the multiplayer side. A lot of people are PlayStation gamers with Xbox mindsets when it comes to that type of gaming and stuff. And Nintendo is somewhere on the completely opposite spectrum of that. Those people love to play that system for the games that they play. And go ahead.
I agree with you, because even Sean Layden said that. He said that Sony does the story-driven games. He said they do it and they do it well, and that's their stick. That's what they do. Here's the thing: once upon a time, right, Xbox was the king. It got coined the term,
shooter box,
the shooter box, the Dubro shooter.
Yeah,
that was what it got. So with that being said, that was early on. That was early to mid. That's when you had Halo. There was nothing else out there that could touch that. And
what continued that though?
Here's the thing: third party came out, right? Saw that success. They came out and they were able to surpass that game by making better shooters, and tons of them. So the whole market is flooded full of great shooters. So now you're comparing Call of Duty, Fortnite, and all these other, Battlefield and all these other to Halo, and Halo's being long in the tooth. Now those old Halo fans has transitioned over to all these other games. So it's no longer the cream of the crop for, as far as a shooter. So, and Gears was there too. But again, there's bigger and better. And so that's just kind of where it is. So Microsoft is finding itself in a different position where last generation it was the king of this, and now third party is kind of taking over. And I think Sony is kind of like, well, shit, why would I make another shooter? Not saying that they shouldn't, but in their minds, they have to be like, well, if I make a shooter, it has to compete against Call of Duty, Fortnite and all these, and Battlefield and all these others. We're gonna have to differentiate our game from those. If not, it's gonna fall in the whole pile of a bunch of fucking shooters that's just the same.
Yeah,
because if you look back to last generation, they had all those shooters. They had the kill zones were a big thing for them. You know what I mean?
It's not what they were.
Mag was big for them. You know what I mean? SOCOM was there. They had Starhawk and Warhawk.
So all that. Yeah.
They had all those multiplayer games, but they just pivoted. Yeah. They pivoted to what they were great.
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing that what I always
Kill Master Chief.
I always look back to 2014 as the biggest. So 2000 probably the biggest blunder they made, but I think something that's even more on par is 2014, when they lost one single thing that really kept them as, like you said, the shooter box, the bro shooter box. When they didn't even go into the conversation for bidding for that Call of Duty licensing, that's when so many people, because they had no stay on it. Because if all these going to exist, why would I go in? And I play nothing but Call of Duty. Why wouldn't I go to that system? That's when and then all the championships were starting to be played on PlayStation instead of Xbox. All the coverage Xbox over to PlayStation. So the mind share, and that's the one thing people don't realize. You lose mind share, even as small as just not having exclusive content, which they completely abandoned at the beginning of this generation when it came to the Xbox One. That did way more harm good for them. Yes, they saved the up. But I don't know what the hell they did with it. They didn't do anything substantial with that money. From what I hear, Terry Myerson had the bank locked up and they couldn't even spend money on Xbox. So that was another thing that helped them not have that identity. Or, if another system could come out and say that, yeah, we're not as big in shooters as everybody else, but we got exclusive content shooters, which is the best shooters, that the other system don't have, those people are going to go to that system. They're going to play on it. So I think in 2014 when that happened, that was the paradigm shift for a lot of people when it came to that casual base. Flipped over to the PlayStation side, and guess what? They may never come back because Microsoft just lost a generation that they shouldn't have lost, or not have lost as bad as they lost, because this is the generation of digital, and no one knows how people really value their digital library. But guess what? We'll find out this year, because a lot of people are going to have a lot of decisions to make when it comes to systems that come out, and if they're going to go on one system or the other, and they value those digital purchases as much as think they do. We'll find out within the next year to year.
Yeah. Here's the thing, right? The choice is going to be this holiday season. The choice is if you just love Xbox and you're an Xbox guy, you're probably going to buy an Xbox. If you're a PlayStation guy, I mean, that you just
if you want to play Last of Us at 60 frames per second. Buy PlayStation.
Listen,
Mikey
Barra said it best. He said there's an uphill battle for Microsoft to try to get anyone from the PlayStation ecosystem to go over to there. They're going to have to do something to drag them over there, to entice them to go over to the other side, because they're already stuck in the ecosystem. They're loving and they're waiting for the next Spider-Man, the next Horizon Zero Dawn, the next God of War. All the games that got them excited now, they're excited for sequels to those games. Obviously, we know there's going to be new games on top of that. So here's the thing. How does Microsoft reach across the aisle and try to grab a guy who's looking forward to the next God of War or Spider-Man? How? And on the flip side, is Sony content with the 106 million install base? Maybe by the time this generation is over, they'll be at maybe 120. Who knows? They tend to average 20 million per year. So, and I just kind of broke that down like that. What incentive is there for a Xbox guy to jump over to the PlayStation side? Let's say they may say, hey, look, I like Spider-Man, but I don't have to, God of War looks interesting. Horizon Zero Dawn look interesting, but I'm a Halo guy. So Mikey Barra said, this is the scenario he gave. We'll know at the end of the year, but what do you guys think? I mean, how does one get the other to come over to his platform?
Exclusives?
No, it ain't exclusive. It ain't exclusive because at this point, if you don't have the other system, it's more how you Xbox people go to PlayStation, because I think all the Xbox people that were going to go to PlayStation are already. I don't think they're really going to lose more people, because if you were an Xbox fan, and you like PlayStation games, you already switched over, because I believe last generation it was 80 million to 86 million.
Yeah.
Microsoft is rumored to be around 45 to 50. That's a 30 million. I think that 30 million are people. I think that 30 million that we're missing from last generation are the people that didn't buy Xboxes this generation that were solely PlayStation. And they only bought an Xbox because of certain games that Xbox had on the system that they wanted to play. They didn't have a reason to buy an Xbox generation, so they didn't buy it.
So here's the thing, Forte. Here's the thing, and you guys just kind of stick with me for a second. Last generation was a combination of, okay, you had the Red Ring of Death, right? And so it's just speculation, Red Ring of Death. The Microsoft had to replace 50% of the Xboxes last generation.
They also launched a year early too.
Yes. No, we know the story why, but what I'm saying is they've had to replace that. And so rumors have it that Microsoft counted those systems that they had to replace as sales. And so that's how they came up with the 80-something million install base. Maybe Microsoft only has 40-something million install base total. Maybe that's all they've ever gathered. And so maybe that's why this generation, because where did the other 40 million go? Last generation, Sony had, like you said, 88 million, and those guys came over to PlayStation 4, and and then obviously they picked up a hell of a lot more people that came over to their platform this generation. But where are all these Xbox guys?
And you also have to factor in that we had a incremental jump. You know what I mean? We don't have that with the PS3 and the 360. You know what I mean? We got the Slims and stuff like that, but this time around we got the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One X. So all those sales are accumulated in that as well. So
exactly.
You know, there's some variation as far as what that total number actually looks like.
Yeah. But back to what Forte said, I mean, the number is somewhere in between 40 to 50, right? But if last generation you had 86, 80, I mean, that's where did those people go? Did those people just not buy a console and it sat out, or did those guys jump over, you know? And if they jumped over to the PlayStation side, well, shit, PlayStation had 88 million last generation. Where did the rest of those numbers go? I'm looking at it like this. Last generation, it was a combination with just those two consoles. Let's say 160 million, right? 80 something a piece. Let's say, I mean,
but we also got to factor in that.
Well, now PlayStation has 100, and we're talking about last generation lasting a hell of a long time. This generation, we're at what, year number 6, and PlayStation is already at 106 million. Xbox is somewhere in between 140 to 150. Hey, I mean, you're sitting at 160 there. So that's what I'm saying. Where are all these extra people going to come from? Where are all these missing people?
Yeah, I think
is that right now the number where we are, is that just the total install base for consoles, taking Nintendo out of the equation?
So here's the thing. I've heard this theory before about, you know, the Red Ring of Death and then Microsoft, you know, selling more consoles because of it. You know, Microsoft said that the failure rate, I think, was 3 to 5%, but they never released anything in terms of official or any other numbers. But I think the failure rate was a lot higher than that.
Oh hell yeah, it was. I went to like 360s.
Yeah, I know.
Official,
yeah, I know people who had. I mean, several people. Like people, like when I was in the GameSpot forums. I mean, people in the Xbox GameSpot forums are complaining about not just one Ring of Death, but they, you know, and Microsoft wasn't repairing, you know, the Ring of Death. I mean, some of them, some people were getting, you know, they had the warranty, so they were using their warranty. I know people though who went out and bought multiple Xboxes because of multiple Red Ring of Death. So it's really kind of
Enrique. Just correction. It was actually 54.2%.
Wow. So it's hard to. Unless Microsoft releases official numbers, I mean, because I understand the theory. Like, you know, you think about consoles shipped, there's more people going out and buying new consoles because of Red Ring. Then yeah, obviously that's going to drive up numbers because if a Red Ring console sold is going to be counted because it's sold to the retailer once. See, what people don't realize is, you know, once PlayStation or Microsoft sell a console to a retailer, they already made their money. It's sold. Yes. It's out of their hands. It's out of their inventory. It's sold. It's counted as a sale. So, you know, if you look at, you know, Red Ring, you think about people going out and buying multiple. I think B Money, you said it. You had multiple Red Rings, which means you probably went out and bought bought another 360. Those Red Rings that were sold. Microsoft counted that because they sold those to retailers, but the problem is we don't know how many people got new 360s that were under warranty. They could get, you know, we don't know how many people bought new consoles because of Red Ring. There's a lot of unknowns, but you could probably surmise that because, you know, like I think B Money, you said you bought, you know, and I know people that bought multiple consoles because of the Red Ring. You can't totally discount that notion that numbers were somewhat impacted because of Red Ring, and for Microsoft in a positive way, because like I said, those Red Ring consoles, once they sold them to retail, that's money in their pocket, and then people coming back and buying another console because of Red Ring, that's money in Microsoft's pocket too. So,
well, you got to remember it was around like 28 to 30 million by the time the Slim came out, which didn't have the Red Ring.
Right.
So even if you would think half of those systems, that 28 to 30, they did that. You just take 15 million off the top of the 82. They still sold about 9. Want to count it that way?
Yeah.
I just think overall is mostly because I always hear that a lot. You might be right about it. You probably did count.
Yeah.
But I always just come back to they just think game on the PlayStation side a reason to buy an Xbox generation. And those are the people, and those are the Star people that don't mind buying multiple systems. And for this generation, they didn't have a reason. They either bought a Switch or they upgraded to a PC because Microsoft gave them a reason to do that instead.
Yeah, or again, there's still a lot of people right now still have their Xbox 360. Think about it, Xbox 360 years, those are the glory years to an Xbox guy, right? Xbox
They are
fans, they want to forget this generation ever happened. They really do. They want to forget it never happened and move on to the next generation. So I'm just wondering, will we get a resurgence of those Xbox 360 gamers back when the series, next generation, when that launch, or not? Or is it? This is all we're looking at?
I don't think so.
I think there's going to be a resurgence only because Microsoft is going to have more games now. And I think the overlap that you have now where like people own both systems, I think that it will only increase next generation because unless people just go to PC. But I think once you're in an ecosystem, it's still a sale of the game over regardless. So I think there's definitely gonna be more people checking out what Microsoft has going on next generation compared to what they did this generation. I think people who bought PlayStations they're gonna stick with that and buy PlayStations. But I think once that price point gets low enough, people are gonna jump over there and check out what Microsoft has going on.
Yeah.
Just because I think their lineup is going to be more diverse. We see what Ninja Theory is doing. We see what Rare is doing. Obsidian's going to have some RPGs. Like they're going to have some hitters over there.
Yeah.
No doubt.
It's just gonna come down to if they are impactful enough to sway people over the fence. Because I think the one thing that I always talked about, before once Microsoft started making purchases, is that this is only a trickle effect to everybody else in the industry. So, when you have Microsoft come out and they buy 6 or 7 developers, guess what everybody else is going to start doing? Yeah. Sony's going to go out there and buy up a couple, and then Amazon's going to buy up a couple, and then Google's going to buy up a couple. So, all your non-major hitters, not your Ubisoft, not your Activision, your EAs, those are going to be the ones floating out in the wild, and all the true creative smaller devs are going to be eaten up by everybody else. So that's where you get some of the crazy unique exclusive content is going to come from those developers. And I think that what we will see over the next couple years, I think there's rumors that Sony has bought up a couple of devs, and they're going to announce them pretty soon. Microsoft is probably going to buy a couple more devs this year. So Google's going to fall in line, and then once Amazon gets in the building, it's over with because they got the longest money out of all of them. And once they get to swinging their dick around, it's going to be a problem. So just everybody keep that in mind, because in a few years when everybody's like, oh, well, I gotta get I gotta play on Amazon service, or I gotta hop on Stadia, or I gotta get the Xbox or PlayStation because they have this content. That's the reason why.
Yeah. Now, I want to address something in the chat. Pixel BitG says next gen will be much closer. They will have the hardware, finally have games plus Game Pass and xCloud, lots of options compared to this gen. They will have games, but I think the biggest thing, I always hear people say this, they're going to have games. Well, they need to have quality games. They just can't have games.
There you go.
The other thing that Bixel says, no one can truly outbuy Microsoft if they are serious. So if there is a price war on devs, good luck. We will lose a lot of studios. Look,
I'm telling you, wait till Amazon get in the game for real. They got one MMO out that's coming out pretty soon.
Yeah,
but I want to address once they get in there and start flexing, you're gonna see how much Amazon money really plays a factor.
Yeah,
in all
Amazon will probably, I think, swing more money because they need to. But I will say this: companies don't just because they're $1 trillion companies just start shelling out money because they like Xbox doesn't have an unlimited budget. They have an allocated budget, and Phil has to get permission to acquire. And I see that a lot. People, oh, you got so much money. Well, yeah, they do. But they're not just not going to throw around money. It's got to make sense, is what I'm trying to say. So,
I'd like to say this, and I know I'm probably going to get some hate for this or whatever, but listen, I just got to be honest. I'm gonna be there day one for both consoles, right? I'm gonna show my love and support as usual for both consoles. I think it's going to be a slaughterhouse next generation. I think it's not. From day one, I think it's just going to. The momentum is in the mind share is so strong where Microsoft would have to do 3 to 4 times as better at Sony at everything in order to make a dent. I think that mind share is crazy. I mean, you guys saw at the award show, Microsoft came out, they showed their console and everything, and then Sony can just go out there and tweet out a logo of a PS5 that's the same logo as a PS4 and get all the mind share. The mind share is with them, and generally, whoever has the mind share, that's where the gamers go. And I don't see that changing anytime soon. I don't, and that's why I say I think day one. I mean, people are gonna go PlayStation 5 like hotcakes, and people are gonna say like Mikey Barber, "Hey man, I'm gonna be PlayStation 5 day one, and I'm gonna just play my Xbox games on my PC." Yeah. That's a lot of that going out there. There's a lot of truth to that. I just see, and I get it. Thank you for Microsoft for finally investing and getting these studios. They're gonna come with some good games. I just think the mind share, which is the most important thing out of anything, over power, over everything else. Nintendo, when they dropped the Switch, they had the mind share. People were ready for something like that. And if you have mind share, what mind share does Microsoft have? I don't see that.
I mean, I think they have it here. I mean, in the States, they certainly have it here more than they do globally. But I'll say this: since December, or what is it, November? Actually, I can't remember the release date of the PlayStation 1. I think it was September 1995. Since September 1995, I was 18 years old. And, yes, that's 25 years ago. And the one constant that I've seen in the last 25 years is that Sony has been the dominant brand in the gaming industry. And I just don't see that changing. And I see people saying, "Oh, again," and I'm not, and I'm not saying, because when I say this, people are like, "Oh, you're anti-Xbox." No, that has nothing to do with that. I mean, like, Sony could be the dominant player, and Xbox could still be a good console and offer good titles, right? Exactly. I mean, just because something isn't top dog doesn't mean that look, McDonald's, McDonald's may be the fast food chain to go to, but their burgers, I mean, if you compare it to something else, aren't that good.
Exactly.
But my point is, I mean, just because they're the market leader doesn't mean that Microsoft can't be successful or that they can't provide quality content. So I want to place that disclaimer, because I think people think, "Oh, well, they're not the market leader, they suck." No, that's not true. But I will say this. People are also acting like this is Sony's first rodeo. Oh, they're silent. They haven't said anything. They're shook. No, they're the market leader. This isn't their first rodeo. So I don't see I see them continuing, and I'm basing this off 25 years of, life lessons, if you will, about the gaming industry. I don't see that changing. I see them Mooch's food analogy, Brap. Yeah. Ryan said I just called PlayStation 4 a McPlaystation. I don't look. I don't see the 25. I don't see that changing, and that doesn't mean that doesn't mean that Microsoft can't put out a good product. I have no doubt that the Series X is going to be a great piece of hardware, and I'm excited. I'm sure Obsidian's going to put out some great content. I think Ninja Theory is putting out some really. I think they're pushing the genre of psychological thrillers or horror games to another level. And I actually think they're probably Microsoft's. I think they're better than 343. I'll throw that out there. I know I got a lot of heat on Crossfire for saying that, but I think that's true. So,
listen. And when I said that, right, it was, we know Microsoft, right? They're all about Game Pass. Game Pass is more than a console to them. So at this point in time, they know that they're never gonna be able to compete with Sony and Nintendo on the raw numbers of selling their consoles. That's why Phil goes out here and spread this message. Play any and everywhere. If you care about the hardware, you wouldn't be saying that. But it's all about Game Pass. He wants you on Game Pass, Game Pass, Game Pass. Game Pass is Xbox right now. So when I said that statement earlier about it's going to be a slaughterhouse, that means people are going to go with $500-$600. You know, if they have that to spend day one, they're going to put their money on PlayStation 5. That's just, I hate to say it, that's just where it's going to go. That's not saying that
you're saying that, J-Dub, because you're a pony, man. Come on.
Well, okay, listen, listen, maybe so. All right, that doesn't negate the fact that this generation has, a lot of people say that this generation was the worst one for Microsoft to lose when it comes to hardware, and it really was. Because Nintendo failed in the beginning, right? They had the Wii U, and that failed epically, but they were able to turn around and come out with another product that's kicking ass and taking name. So, and Sony did the same thing last generation. The the PlayStation 3 failed, and it was able to turn it around within that generation. Microsoft with the Xbox One kind of failed this generation, and they just never recovered. They switched the whole strategy. They no longer, hardware was no longer the talk for them as far as now it's about systems and it's about services and stuff like that. So, but to the hardcore gamer or to most of the guys, they'll say that they don't care about sales. Why are you talking about sales? You care. You really do, because if you post a chart or something, like if IGN talks about it, you get all in the uproar and you cry and scream. You care about those sales numbers. Forte is going to tell you, look, he's going to look at those NPD numbers. They're going to care. They're going to matter. Day one, week 2, the first month, whoever has that NPD win, that's who's going to be bragging. And that's just, it is what it is.
I hear you, man. I hear you. You know, I did want to talk about media bias. I don't think I'll talk about that. That's just
doesn't exist.
There's something going around because of what IGN made a comparison of watching, Netflix, and they were, I don't know if you saw that, but people are losing their minds. I'm like, this is ridiculous, but I'm not going to get into that because frankly, I'm hungry. I'm starving. My body's weary. I need to eat. All this talk about McDonald's in the live chat, I'm like, oh shit, man, I'm actually hungry. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this Brap Rant, but I just want to say a big thank you to everyone in the live chat. Appreciate the Lansville Paul says, Brap, remember when Halo was breaking sales in 24 hours? I remember that. Those were crazy days. But I just want to thank everyone in the live chat, guys. Thanks for coming through. Hit that like button. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. We really, really appreciate it. Give a big shout out to our special guest, J-Dub, Kratos. Dude, let people know where they can find you, man.
Yeah, man, you guys can find me on Twitter at JDubCity16, trying to keep you guys laughing with all the gifts and the memes, you know what I mean? Keeping the fires roaring, burning down houses and everything, and keeping people mad. That's what I do.
Dude, I'm telling you, man, I think you ruin people's days, man, unfortunately. I hate to say it, but you probably do, man. You probably do. But
it's all love, man. It's all love.
Yeah. Also, a big thank you to the rest of the Brat panel members, Gaming Forte, who I think he's at a basketball. Are you at a basketball game? What are you doing, man? Oh, did we lose him?
Nah, he's in. He's still on mute.
Forte.
He's probably on mute. All right. B Money, man. Dude, thanks for hopping in. It was kind of an impromptu rant. I was like, and I dropped it in the DM if you guys want to hop in, man. So I appreciate it, bro.
Yeah. I saw it kind of late, man. But I figured I should hop in there and give my 2 cents on some of the topics. So I appreciate you posting, man.
No doubt, man. No doubt, dude. And I need to pick up Ni no Kuni, man. Was it Ni no Kuni 2 we were talking about?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I got to pick that up, man. Definitely need to pick that up. But I'm going to play some up. By the way, if you have Game Pass, you haven't picked up Plague's Tale, you need to do that. It's a really good game. And you may want to check out Children of Morta, too. I heard that's pretty good. I haven't played it, but definitely Plague's Tale is a must pick up on Game Pass if you have Game Pass. So, Forte, are you there? No? Hello? No, he's not. All right. On that note, guys, we are out. Again, big shout out to everyone in the live chat, guys. Thank you for stopping by. And we'll see you guys next Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Actually, we might be doing something different format. We're going to be linking up, I think, with Wilmy Hood in his panel, but we haven't made an announcement yet, so just keep an eye out for that. Other than that, guys, have a great weekend. Enjoy your time gaming. We are out. Peace.
Peace.